Today we're going to talk about why we have chosen homeschooling. Do you want to start?
To a lot of people, we thought, looked at it as, weird that we wanted to homeschool our kids, but why we wanted to do it overall is, in my experience, when I was in the education system, I saw the lack of, the failures of it, especially for younger kids, and realizing that a lot of the stuff that they teach and do that we can do. And then for me, I had the experience of actually homeschooling my nephew during COVID. I had time off, so a lot of time I spent almost, what was it, 8 months?
Yeah, pretty much.
8 months homeschooling him. So teaching him, he was in grade
1
at the time, yeah. And it was teaching him just basic adding, subtracting, alphabet.
How to read. You taught him
how to read, stuff like that. And in those 8 months, I realized a lot of the stuff that I could do. So seeing his progression and seeing
and that was the other thing, is that things that he was really struggling with in school, you found that by giving him one-on-one attention, he was able to pick it up a lot faster, and he seemed like a lot more confident. He was learning faster, and I feel like he was just, overall, it was a better environment for him at that time in his life.
Yeah. So in that experience, I was like, hey, we can do this. So when we first had Isla, even before we were talking about it, before we had kids, we definitely talked about it. But once we knew we were gonna have one and had one, and now two, we're like, yeah, we're homeschooling. And then and this was even before I was worked in the education system. And then when I worked for the education system, I really saw the failures, all around, but really
there's things that were questionable about the education system. So some of the things what kids are exposed to, not necessarily just from curriculum, but from other kids, that was one of my biggest concerns. Mm-hmm. Right? So I feel like when I was in elementary school, I was exposed to things that weren't age appropriate based on other kids. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I feel like that kind of took away from my childhood, and I wanted to protect our kids' childhood. I want them to be able to be kids for as long as possible. I feel like being a child is a privilege. It's such a short time in our life that I want to protect it.
100%. And then also going from that, it's seeing that how influenceable.
Yes.
And yeah.
I found I was worried because I feel like our daughter picks up behaviors from other kids really quickly, really easily, and I wanted before I would feel comfortable with her going to a school and being surrounded by other kids, I'd want her to know herself. I want her to be very assured of herself, and to be very confident in who she is. And I feel like more time with us and us supporting her and encouraging her in whoever she is, whoever she wants to be, is going to prepare her for that. I want her to be so sturdy in who she is that being surrounded by other kids and other people, she doesn't waver in who she is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, I want her to learn. I want her to grow. I want her to develop as a person. But I think some ways are good and some ways are bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that was a huge piece, is that we noticed that Isla, like Savannah said, picked up a lot of things. So we're right away, and we already made the decision, but it just kind of reinforced it. And then tying in with the confidence, and even in my experience, I had it where the education system kind of took away that confidence of who I was, for me, in my experience when I was younger. So, and that's something that led to me to have trauma in the sense that I always had something to prove when it came to being intelligent. Mm-hmm. So in my experience, I just didn't want her to go through that, especially at a younger age. And if we can shape that, knowing that I did do it, mm-hmm. and then number two, it's that we can help shape her more importantly, and not have anyone kind of outside influences.
Yeah.
And
that sounds really controlling, but I think more so I want to clarify what you mean on that, is that you don't know who's educating your kids when you send them into a school. You don't know their values. You really don't know them as a person. You're just kind of assigned a teacher, and you just have to trust that they're going to instill values that align with your family or anything, right? Yeah. It's putting a lot of trust into people that you don't know, and that's not something that either of us feel comfortable with.
And it's not only just the teacher, it's the kids. Yeah. That's actually the piece, like, yes, the teacher, but it was also the kids I realized too, is like, who are you surrounding yourself with the kids? But I think the other side of it too is, like, in my experience of working in the education system, I saw like the literacy rates are going down, math rates are going down. Like, kids aren't being educated at the same level as they were before. And this is obviously my experience, but also I've had many conversations. I work with a lot of EAs and teachers, and seeing the struggle that the education system have, especially with younger kids. Like, they're younger kids that are
a lot more kids are slipping through the gaps. So
yeah.
Struggling with writing their names, struggling with, all these things. And obviously, if we were to send our child to school, just, I think, here, how do I put this? So I feel like education is still the responsibility of the parents, regardless of if you send your child to school or not. Mm-hmm. But I think where a lot of kids are struggling is that maybe there's not enough support at home, or not enough extra resources to support the child's learning. Yeah. And I'm just like, if we're already going to have to put in so much more and so much more effort, what's the point of sending her to school for like 8 hours a day when we can just do that in the first place? Yeah. And then that leaves so much more free time for her exploring what she's passionate about, her having fun, her playing, art. She's really into like dance and stuff like that, and I want her to be able to explore that to its extent, to as far as she wants to take it, while still supporting her education. Yeah exactly. And then and then I think going back to the point of like how literacy rates are down, math rates are down, like right now in a lot of younger education, a lot of it is dealing with a lot of behavior issues. So that's something that, when speaking to a lot of kindergarten and younger teachers, and even seeing in older grades, is even in high school, seeing kids acting like grade 9s, acting like they're grade 3s. Like, in the sense of like lack of respect for teachers, lack of listening, lack of learning. And then again, I think it goes to Savannah's point about the lack of resources. So a lot of teachers are kind of struggling, really, because it's hard on them with dealing with like full class load, let's say 28, 30 kids, and then on top of it, you have kids aren't behaving well, and then so kids fall through the cracks. So I was even heard, one teacher told me that there was kids in grade 3 that couldn't write their name, and that was something I was like, wow, like, it's something that's really bad. And for me, I worked in the secondary system. I did get some experience in elementary, but working in the secondary, I saw, like, just with the example of the literacy test, like, the literacy test is something that every kid needs to pass to be able to graduate. And I saw how the literacy test nowadays is so much easier. Like, they've literally lowered the bar and expectations of kids. So seeing that, it was something like, okay, that like is another big reason why we're like, okay, let's take the ownership. And like Savannah said, if we're gonna have to take that ownership in the first place, like, why not just completely take it into our hands? I think a lot of people are scared about homeschooling because I don't think they realize the amount of resources are available for people that are homeschooling. Yeah. So that's a really the wide diversity in a curriculum available. There's tutors, there's groups. So there's like like kids around the same age can meet up. You can go on field trips together. There's still opportunities for socialization. There's still opportunities for supported learning. It's not meaning that we're going to be teaching every single subject. There's online schooling. There's so many different options available now that I don't think that we have to stick to the traditional route. Yeah. Especially we want to live more free lives. Like, we want to be able to travel whenever. We want to be able to pick up and go, move, do all these things without compromising the quality of our kids' education.
Yeah. So, and that's another huge piece is like what Savannah said on two sides is one, it lives into more of our lifestyle. We want to live like Savannah was saying, more of a free lifestyle. So we want to have the freedom to be able to flexible to move, get up and go. And then on top of it is that there are so many resources out there like that we have. What's the website you're already using?
Oh, I can talk. Oh, I guess I can talk about that now. So
Yeah.
because our kids are so young, I'm still exploring which curriculum I feel like would be best for her. She's not even in kindergarten yet, but she still does homeschool every single day. So I only use free materials. So I use Teachers Pay Teachers, Pinterest. There's stuff available on Etsy, available on what's the other website? Did I say Pinterest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even social media, like people will post like different resources they're using, different games, like elementary, kindergarten teachers will post like different activities you can do, stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing, and like we're just having fun with it at this point. I just want her to develop an interest in learning, a passion for learning, because that's something that I really enjoy, but I didn't develop until later on. And I just want her to have that all throughout. Like, and that's another thing that we want to accomplish by homeschooling is keeping that curiosity alive, keeping the creativity alive, keeping her whole without, some of the things that we felt the education system took from us.
Yeah. And so like, and those resources have been awesome, and then adding a little bit of our own creativity. Like I love, like Savannah loves, like she's very creative with what she does, so it's like
creating new games.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like taking everyday things and turning into learning, right? So like cooking, or learning about the weather, or learning science from the environment, or there's so many different things, and there's so many different awesome curriculums out there. So one thing that like stresses me out about homeschooling is picking the right curriculum, but I think I've just kind of like going with the flow, following her interest. And then there's so many, obviously, like I was saying, curriculum. So there's like Montessori education, there's Waldorf, there's unschooling, there's like forest school. Like there's so many different options, right? So I think just taking little bits of everything, but then I do want her to be able, that if she decides that she wants to go into the school system later on, if she wants to go to secondary school or post-secondary, that she can transition smoothly. So making sure that we're not following, but we're still including everything that she would be learning in school here.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just so that if she does make that decision, because ultimately it's her life, it's her choice.
Yeah.
That we can make that transition as smooth as we can.
Yeah, and that's actually something like we, like we're gonna let her, as she gets older, and as we're gonna let her make the choice if she wants to go to school or not. So that's something. It's not like we're gonna homeschool up to grade 12 and there's no choice, and it's we're forcing her to do it. It's like like just in the moments of now, and as she's aging and we see the confidence develop and stuff, she'll definitely, I don't think we have an exact age where we're like, hey, she can make the choice, but I think we'll kind of know as we kind of go with the flow, and it'll be like deciding if she really wants to go to school or not.
Because like right now, I think the only thing that she's like, I want to go to school for is for other kids. She just wants to be with other kids, which she's in activities, so we're taking her socialization seriously. Like she dances, she swims, she goes to the library, she has friends, she has cousins. But what holds me back from her going to school right now is that when she does homeschool in groups, she cannot focus. Like she
just wants to run around.
She just wants to play. She wants to know what everyone else is doing. So I think trying to encourage ways for her to maintain focus while she's with other people is important.
And I think
which I think she's growing yet too.
And that's like the other side of it, is that in our experience, like so many people ask us like, oh, what school is she going to, or how's and everybody like kind of the stigma of homeschooling, and that's something that right away when you said like the socialization piece, because
That's the biggest thing.
people kind of always want to target that. Like, why I'm telling, like, the looks we've gotten when we tell people we're gonna homeschool, like they look at us like we're, I don't even know,
Crazy.
just like
But
we're crazy.
It's interesting because I feel like homeschooling is becoming more popular now. So I know
Definitely
a lot.
is.
There's a lot of families in our lives that are choosing to homeschool.
Yeah.
And it's not like we met these people through like homeschool activities. These are people we already know that are having kids that are also choosing homeschool, which makes it nice because there's other people in our community now that you can bounce ideas off of. We can go on trips together. We can do things together. That like supports that aspect of learning. And I know people that have been homeschooled, and I feel like there's just something about them, like they're just them. You know what I mean? Like people will say like people that were homeschooled are weird, but I think that they weren't forced to conform. Yeah. And that's why people think they're weird. They are uniquely them. Yeah. And like that sense of self and confident is intact. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. I love that so much.
It's so true.
So I feel like what people assume as like or take as weird, I take it as a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Like the authentic self aspect of it, which is again we think is so important. And then again knowing like in Isla's circumstance that she is very like influenceable, so it's like,
but she's also very social. She's like,
yeah, she loves other kids, and that's a thing, like people were like, oh, how are you gonna socialize it? But there's so many ways that you can socialize it.
There's literally a kid, like shout out to Ontario because early on centers. Yeah. Like I don't know if it's throughout all of Canada, but anyways, like they're in every single community pretty much. Yeah. You can take your kid. They can go interact with other kids. There's libraries. There's community centers.
Just taking them to the park. Like
the park. That's like her go-to. There's.
And
we have a big family.
Yeah, that's the other huge thing. Yeah, with a lot of young ones and a lot of them
around the same age. Yeah. So it's just like I feel like we're very blessed to have our family because our kids are always with other kids.
We don't have to worry about that as much. It's not like we're one kid and isolated. Like she has so many kids who she can play with.
That also teach her lots of things. Like two of our nephews and French. Yeah. Like so she's learning to count in French. Like she's picking up other things, like which is awesome.
Yeah. Which is huge. And then I think that, and then I think adding to that kind of socialization piece, because we tell people, like, our lifestyle, the way we want to live is we want to travel a lot. Like, we're not going to be in one place.
When she travels. Like, she can pick up languages. Like, her confidence skyrockets. Like, we took her hiking in Alberta. She, like, was hiking in Banff and in Jasper. And...
Well, even her in Mexico, too.
Even her in Mexico. Her, like... she wanted to know how to speak to the kids because she realized that I think like there's something there. She's like, why can't we talk? So I taught her how to say, do you want to play with me? Like we just Google translated it just so that she has like little things, but she's making friends like across cultures, making friends across continents at this point, which is like, it's beautiful. She made a friend from the UK. She made friends from Mexico. She made friends from South America. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And that's like, that aspect is a lot of people like the stigma also with wanting to travel and then have kids too. Is that something that and how education is a big like anchor in a way that people look as like, oh, because they're like, oh, they usually assume that they're in a school so they can't move. And then again, like even something that we found interesting is like people would say, oh, what happens if they make like the foundational friends, like the friends that are huge to people's life. And to me personally, that like I see that as like kind of not overrated, but kind of like, because I look at like my life and like who I went to elementary school with. It's like how many kids do I talk to from elementary school?
But I don't think people are talking about elementary school necessarily like from that moment. But
but that's where I'm thinking about with like our kids and our age. It's like how many kids do you talk to from like when they're very young? Like yes, there are foundational like in high school and you might have
sorry to cut you off.
No, well, yeah,
But
exactly.
technology is changing. Like, I feel like one, Isla's foundational friends, I think, are going to be her cousins, because those are the people she spends the most of her time with.
Yeah.
And they're kind of her forced friends, but they're her built-in friends.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that she's going to be around the most. Those are, regardless of if she goes to a school or not, she's very thankful. When we're very thankful, she has close cousins, and I think technology will keep them connected regardless of where we are in the world. Because even when we do travel, even if we don't see each other for a long period of time, they're FaceTiming.
Yeah. And they're
still talking. They're still playing games on the phone, talking, stuff like that. And like, she doesn't really get screen time like that, but FaceTime I don't count as screen time, because she's connecting with people.
In the morning.
But also, I was raised in a family, this is gonna sound bad to my friends out there, I still love you guys, where friends are like considered very secondary. Like, your family is the most important. Like, we're taught, like, as you grow up, the people that you stay with in your life are most likely going to be your family. It's going to be your siblings, like, it's going to be your partner, your kids, and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's strengthening
family
familial
first,
bonds,
friends second, and that's something
I could go into a whole other video on that, because that had its pros and cons. But I do, like, my best friends are my siblings and are my cousins, right? The people that I enjoy, I think, that recharge me the most and that I enjoy being around the most is our family. Like your family and my family. So our family.
and then again you have your close friends
and then I have
that
my
you
close
kind of
friends
tie in as like they
family. Become family, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
And so to me, it's almost like I have friends, but I don't talk to them very often. And then I have my very close friends that are my family. Like, I would consider them my sisters.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even look at them as friends. Like, I literally, that's my sister. Like,
yeah.
So.
That's true. But that was. Is there anything else that you noticed?
So sorry.
Go ahead.
We wrote down some other things just that we can go over after. But would you say, is there anything I noticed?
No, like, because I'm still thinking about the topic of, like, the stigma. Because I do want to really kind of hit that, because that's something that we feel everywhere we go when we have the conversation.
Yeah, and that one, that we don't know everything, so how can we educate our kids? That we're not qualified to teach our kids.
Yeah.
So one, resources, curriculum, stuff like that supports you. It gives, like, when you purchase curriculum, it typically comes with packages for the parents or whoever's educating the kids on how to teach this subject, it's lesson plans, it's activities, it's step-by-step guidance on how to do it. There's groups, there's connecting with other parents. Some parents will swap, and like, you teach this subject if it's something that you're more educated or more knowledgeable on, and I'll teach this subject if it's something that I'm more knowledgeable on. Tutors, there's looking up things online, there's online school, there's online classes that you do in tandem with homeschool. There's so many options. And like, even when I was in high school, like, I had a tutor that was a retired teacher. Retired teachers still teach in different ways. So if that's something that you need, like, if it's a subject that both of us are like, okay, we're really struggling with this, we don't know how to support her in it, there's tons of outside resources that we can bring in to support that learning.
I think
and we live in the age of technology. So
exactly.
There's access
everywhere
to everything, right? Like, if Isla has a question and I'm just like, I'm not sure how to explain it at an age appropriate level, I'll look up a video or an article or something, and I'll read it to her and I'll explain it to her. Or today we were learning about the solar system.
Exactly.
So we put on a video with her, and then afterwards you can have a discussion. If she has any more questions, we can look them up. We're learning together. Right? Like, I don't want her to think that we know everything, we're the end all be all, that knowledge ever stops growing. Right? So
and that
it's teaching her how to learn.
And even that one beholder of education, like, it's the one person that knows all. And I think, like, even like when you're saying that, what goes into my head is the idea that it's as much as it like, you have your one teacher for your grade, and in our experience, even with that, she's learning from so many different people and
already,
resources. So I think that's actually the best way.
Yeah.
And looking at it is that it's not one person educating, even though okay they went to school, they're educated, they're teachers. It's like we have so many a variety of resources, like we said, and variety of people and variety of things to educate her, that it's not us. It's not just us, and it's not just one person like the education system does. It's
at the younger
younger, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm more referring to, because but and then again, I think what's so important at this age is the one-on-one, the time that you can put into with your kid. Like it's the individualized aspect, I think, is, and that's where I think the education system is the lack of resources, is that they are making class sizes bigger and there's more kids, and it's harder for teachers to be able to spread themselves out, to be able to educate all the kid or put in the time that each kid needs, because each kid is different. They're unique and they're learning styles, and that's even something that I found that is that the education system's kind of niching into a specific learning style, where like Savannah said, there's so many different learning styles that you could approach. And it's like every day you can look at it in a different way. Like, okay, we're outside digging in dirt, learning to play. And then there's like with the Montessori, there's the regular, just in a book. So there's so many different ways. And I think it's important that we have that, we do that, and that she gets the time that she needs to grow. And we're seeing that. And what I found even interesting too, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but even looking at how much schooling should a kid at Isla's age. Isla's about almost 3.5 now, and how much time is like needed for school specific work per day. And it was what, like 20 to 30 minutes per day, while kids are in school for 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is, and they're in school. But it's like, why are they in school that long? And then that can go into the whole other rabbit hole of it being like into the system and being in the sense of
separating the child from the family.
Exactly. Kind of going in. Exactly.
Just a whole other thing.
Yeah, which is a whole other topic that actually needs to be talked about. It's so important.
Like my thesis was on, it was literally on indoctrination and how education is used as a tool to indoctrinate. So I'm like, knowing what we know, it's kind of hard to send her there confidently. Yeah. And also, we're very blessed that we have the opportunity to homeschool our kids. So why not take that opportunity for as long as we have it?
Exactly. Right? But that also ties into the broader aspect, is because they know nowadays that both parents need to work to survive. Because again, it's like it's like inflation, everything. It's hard to survive out here. So it's like, so again, like education is used almost as like a daycare nowadays, like especially for younger kids. It's
or even just the questions people get, we get when people find out I was not even in like daycare. They're like, I'm like, why does she doesn't really need to be in daycare? I work from home. Like,
we have the time.
We have the time.
Yeah.
To spend with her, and I want to spend that time with her.
Yeah.
And I want her and her siblings, her brother, to like be tight, and I feel like separating them wouldn't.
Yeah, especially at such a young age.
And like they get individual parent time with each of us, right? Like, so it's not like, and she does get individual time with us, so it's just like with both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like overall it's still the best bet for her right now.
Yeah.
And then I think, so we talked about curriculum, resources, socialization. One of the other things I think that's hard about it is patience.
Yeah. That was one thing that we actually talked about this week, and kind of, because there were the one day Isla just was not in the mood, didn't want to pay attention, and we both were at our kind of wits, and we rotated in and out, and it was still like we were both just Oh,
That's the thing about homeschool is like we can call it a day, and I think
Yeah.
knowing when to call it a day.
it's
It's like because I feel like you take it as like I need to finish this. We're going to finish this
Yeah.
as we started it, but I think sometimes
it's just
her heart's not in it, and like
Yeah.
I don't want to force her and then ruin the fun of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also need to find that balance where you start your activity, you gotta finish
Yeah.
it. You gotta put your all into something and focusing
And then there's that is the one big thing that we kind of sad about. We're like this is gonna be harder than we think because again, being her parents, it's a different kind of nuance in how she listens and how she takes things in. So but I think that's where you come in, and you're so good at making sure that it is fun. It's an activity that she wants to do. Because again, when the activity we're doing and some activity she doesn't always enjoy. It's not something that and that's obviously part of school. Not everyone likes math or likes English, but you have to learn. So going through those triumphs, but also just being patient with her, especially on days where you're a little more tired than other days or whatever it is it's a little harder. So that was something that we were kind of challenged with. We're like, wait a minute, can we do this? Should we do this? And obviously it was a tough day, and you're gonna have those days where you are real with yourself that I need a break. And it's good that like we were able to tag out and kind of switch up because Savannah noticed I was getting frustrated. I noticed she was, so we were able to kind of do that. But it's something that is hard because the patience will be tested, and just finding that balance of like, hey, we're not.
I definitely
we don't
don't
want to
think
ruin the
homeschool is
experience.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's not something that you're interested in, like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's knowing yourself and knowing your child, and you know what's best for your child.
Yeah.
Right? So for us, I think we're also lucky that we have other people in our lives that can step in sometimes to do that, to do those activities, to support that learning as well. Very rarely, but still. And I think for me, on the days when it's just me and her, it's just knowing when to end it.
Yeah.
Knowing that okay, she's clearly not interested. That's it. Or there's an end. I just try to show her like the light at the end. So if you finish your worksheets, whatever we need to do, you do your activities. Let's go outside. Let's go ride the bike. Let's go for a walk. I don't know what else, because painting, coloring, all of that's still a part of everyday activity. Like that's not a reward.
Yeah,
that's happening regardless of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what else did we talk about? I think we talked about being exposed to age appropriate information, age appropriate play and stuff like that is really important for us. The time with our kids. We talked about indoctrination, choosing curriculum that we feel supports her learning and her as a person, and like supports her developing her sense of self and stuff like that. So and all in all, she's wonderful. And I want to preserve that.
And be around it.
That's the big thing.
Because it's I feel like it's also the bond that we get to be there. And I think, again, the blessing that we are able to be there and take the time with her, I think is so important for us. Like, we know, because biggest thing I'm realizing in general, and not even just overall, is that time is something that you never get back. Like, it's the one thing in life that you don't get back. So spending the time with your kids and homeschool is one way we really get to get that one-on-one time, and there's so many other different ways, but it's just one little aspect that we can do, and that's
for us it feels like a big aspect because of the time that it gives us with her. And I think like building on that this is such a foundational time for her. I think like really solidifying our bond as a family, so that's something that grows, I feel like starts now.
Instead of separating and again
and also like she has separation anxiety, and I have separation anxiety from her. I think I handle mine a little better than she handles hers, but she's 3, so so I like when I leave her and she's crying and like it's just not a good gut feeling. Like, if she doesn't want me to leave her, I don't want to leave her.
Yeah.
I want her to have like a healthy attachment. And she does go off and go do her own thing. She has no problem dipping out and leaving me when she wants to.
Oh yeah.
But if she doesn't want to, I don't want to force that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.